Real Estate State Board Exam 2026 Practice Questions. Flashcard 1. 1. In which area of brokerage has absentee ownership increased the demand? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is property management. Flashcard 2. 2. How is a real estate appraiser typically paid? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a fee based upon time and difficulty of the appraisal. Flashcard 3. 3. What does the local planning agency have the authority to approve? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a subdivision plat map. Flashcard 4. 4. What is it called when a developer gives land to a governmental body? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is dedication. Flashcard 5. 5. What business is a license engaged in who markets, leases, and maintains property for someone else? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is property management. Flashcard 6. 6. In which service of real estate must licensee disclose the agency relationship and the responsibilities of that relationship to the public? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is residential sales. Flashcard 7. 7. Which power authorizes the FREC to pass or revise rules? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is quasi-legislative. Flashcard 8. 8. All of the following would be grounds for suspension or revocation of a real estate license, except think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is not being a resident of Florida. Flashcard 9. 9. Sandy works as a sales associate for a broker and has been asked to work weekends for a developer to see new homes on commission. What must Sandy do to work for the developer? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is transfer her license from the broker to the owner-developer. Flashcard 10. 10. What does the license law require that her licensee complete before the first renewal of a Florida real estate license? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a post-licensing course. Flashcard 11. 11. In a brokerage corporation, the officers and directors can be active or inactive brokers or non-licensed registered persons. If someone who is non-licensed and registered wants to become a broker, what must he or she do? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is qualify for a broker license in the same way as anyone else. Flashcard 12. 12. Who would be exempt from the real estate licensing law? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a person who rents mobile home lots. Flashcard 13. 13. Which entity provides the best protection for the public during a real estate transaction? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is FREC and the license law. Flashcard 14. 14. Which of the following is a characteristic of group license? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is it may be held by a sales associate or broker associate. Flashcard 15. 15. All of the following are exempt from FS 1475, except think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is business brokers. Flashcard 16. 16. Complete the sentence. A broker who holds more than one broker license. Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is holds multiple licenses. Flashcard 17. 17. Complete the sentence. General partners in a brokerage partnership that are not qualified to perform the services of real estate must be registered. Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is for identification purposes. Flashcard 18. 18. Bill's license expired on September 30. On February 14 of the following year, he wants to renew it. If it is not his first renewal, what must Bill do? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is pay a late fee and complete 14 hours of continuing education. Flashcard 19. 19. Ron and his wife each have real estate licenses before he enters the military. Ron is stationed in Washington, D.C., and his wife accompanies him there. If they make their licenses inactive, think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is Ron and his wife are exempt from renewal requirements until 6 months after Ron's discharge. Flashcard 20. 20. What is the status of a Sales Associate's license if the Sales Associate works for a broker, and that broker loses his license? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is involuntary inactive. Flashcard 21. 21. The Florida Real Estate Commission may do all of the following, except to think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is impose imprisonment as a penalty. Flashcard 22. 22. Call's license expired on September 30, 2015. On February 10, 2019, he wants to activate again. Which is correct? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is his license is null and void. Flashcard 23. 23. A real estate broker has entered into a single agency relationship with the sellers of a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. One of the agents in that broker's office has found an investor wanting to hire the brokerage firm as a single agent. For the investor to be shown this seller's house, think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is both the seller and investor must agree to transition to transaction broker status. Flashcard 24. 24. What must be given to a seller who is about to enter into a fiduciary relationship with a brokerage firm? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is single agency notice. Flashcard 25. 25. What should a sales associate do if his employing broker instructs him or her not to show properties to people of a certain race? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is find a new employer. Flashcard 26. 26. Which form requires the signature of all parties? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is transition to transaction broker. Flashcard 27. 27. In which instance must the agency disclosure forms developed by the state be used? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is residential sales. Flashcard 28. 28. Which duty does a broker owe to a customer? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is disclose known facts affecting the value of residential property. Flashcard 29. 29. What must all advertising of listed property contain? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is name of the brokerage firm. Flashcard 30. 30. Sales associate Glenn works for brokerage on. If Glenn receives an escrow deposit on Tuesday, what should he do? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is deliver it to his broker immediately next business day. Flashcard 31. 31. A broker may hold escrow deposits in any of the following, except to think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a mutual fund. Flashcard 32. 32. To whom do listings obtained by a sales associate belong? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is the employing broker. Flashcard 33. 33. A broker sells a rental list to a prospective tenant for $200. In a written agreement, the broker states that the fee is non-refundable. This is think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is illegal under FS 475. Flashcard 34. 34. A sales associate wants to use a trade or fictitious name. Which statement applies? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is this would violate FS 475. Flashcard 35. 35. Jim is a sales associate applicant but has failed this state exam twice. After reviewing his most recent exam, he feels that some of the questions he missed were really correct and marked wrong in error. What may Jim do? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is file a written objection to the questions during the scheduled question review. Flashcard 36. 36. Craig is a real estate sales associate working for ABC Realty, Inc. Craig decides to have refrigerator magnets made to give out to the public. What must he include on the magnets? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is they must contain the name ABC Realty, Inc. Flashcard 37. 37. A borrower applied for and received an adjustable rate mortgage ARM. The interest rates increased more than the periodic cap would allow. The new payment does not cover the full interest that is added to the principal balance in deferred. What is this called? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is negative amortization. Flashcard 38. 38. Which business entity may not register as real estate brokerage firm? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is corporation sole. Flashcard 39. 39. When there is a dispute over escrow funds, the procedures include 4 choices. Which choice involves a third person recommending a solution? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is mediation. Flashcard 40. 40. Which step follows the investigation in the complaint process? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is * probable cause determination * The 7 steps of the disciplinary process are complaint, investigation, probable cause, administrative complaint, formal/informal hearing, final order of the commission, and judicial review. Flashcard 41. 41. Complete the sentence. If a licensee does not dispute the citation, it has the same effect as a think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is final order. Flashcard 42. 42. What is the maximum criminal penalty that a court could impose for a second-degree misdemeanor? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $500 fine and / or 60 days of jail time. Flashcard 43. 43. Who has the right to file a complaint against a licensee with the DBPR? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is anyone. Flashcard 44. 44. Which punishment would FREC likely impose for a first offense against a broker found guilty of a minor violation? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is notice of noncompliance. Flashcard 45. 45. What is the maximum number of years that FREC may suspend a real estate license? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 10. Flashcard 46. 46. For multiple claims against a licensee, what is the maximum reimbursement from the Florida Real Estate Recovery Fund? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is Flashcard 47. 47. Complete the sentence. The Florida Real Estate Recovery Fund. Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is funded from licensing fees. Flashcard 48. 48. Where must the appeals of FREC final orders be filed? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is District Court of Appeals. Flashcard 49. 49. What is the maximum fine the Commission could impose against a licensee who has found guilty of 2 violations of Chapter 475 FS? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $10. Flashcard 50. 50. What charge may be filed against a broker who fails to pay his or her seller's associate? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is conversion. Flashcard 51. 51. The Fair Housing Act of 1968, as amended, prohibits discrimination based upon think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is race, color, religion, sex, national origin, family status, or handicap. Flashcard 52. 52. What law requires that buyers be given a good faith estimate of closing costs prior to closing? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act (RESPA). Flashcard 53. 53. A licensee picks the properties a particular buyer is shown based on the race of the buyer. What is the illegal act? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is steering. Flashcard 54. 54. Telling homeowners that minority families are moving into their neighborhood in an attempt to get them to sell their home and move is referred to as which of the following? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is blockbusting. Flashcard 55. 55. Broker Bill has been hired to rent Mrs. Brown's apartment building located in a large college town. Broker Bill quotes lower rents and deposits to females because he has found through experience that they will cause less trouble than males, and females maintain their apartments in much better condition. This is think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a violation of the Fair Housing Act of 1968. Flashcard 56. 56. Which is correct according to the Florida Landlord and Tenant Act? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is: landlord must inform tenant within 30 days how the deposit is being held. Flashcard 57. 57. A developer advertises homes for sale with a total down payment of $1,500. The developer knows that all of the houses with that amount of down payment have been sold. Is the transaction covered under truth in lending laws? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is yes, because this is bait and switch advertising and is illegal. Flashcard 58. 58. What is the main purpose of Regulation Z? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is: require lenders to disclose the true cost of credit to consumers. Flashcard 59. 59. Under the Truth in Lending Act, in credit advertising which would not be considered a triggering term, think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is easy terms. Flashcard 60. 60. A broker receives a kickback or referral fee from a title insurance company. This practice is: think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a violation of RESPA. Flashcard 61. 61. A property that borders a river or stream includes which rights? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is riparian. Flashcard 62. 62. The courts usually apply legal tests to determine if personal property has become a fixture. Which of the following is included in those tests? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is relationship of the parties. Flashcard 63. 63. An owner of a piece of real estate has purchased the materials to fence the backyard. What type of property is the fencing material? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is personal property. Flashcard 64. 64. Three friends buy a property together with equal shares at the same time. If they have the right of survivorship, what type of tenancy have they created? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is joint tenancy. Flashcard 65. 65. Who owns the property in a tenancy by the entireties? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is husband and wife. Flashcard 66. 66. What type of tenancy exists when a tenant remains in possession of the property after his or her rights have expired? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is tenancy at sufferance. Flashcard 67. 67. The purpose of the homestead exemption is to protect the surviving spouse and children and to exempt property from foreclosure. For think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is debts other than direct and federal liens. Flashcard 68. 68. Which tenant contains the right of survivorship? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is joint. Flashcard 69. 69. The initial tax exemption for homestead is available only to owners that. Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is claim the property as their principal residence as of January 1 and filed by March 1. Flashcard 70. 70. What would the best bundle of rights with a timeshare include? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is interval ownership. Flashcard 71. 71. How is the right to occupy a cooperative evidenced? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is proprietary lease. Flashcard 72. 72. What term refers to the power that the government has to take land for the public good? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is eminent domain. Flashcard 73. 73. Which clause in a deed states that the grantor was in possession and has the right to sell the property? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is cession. Flashcard 74. 74. What is actual notice? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is possession of the property that can be seen and heard. Flashcard 75. 75. Complete the sentence. A deed must be. Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is witnessed. Flashcard 76. 76. How is a quitclaim deed most often used? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is as a way to clear clouds on title. Flashcard 77. 77. Complete the sentence. The ownership of a property actually transfers from the grantor to the grantee when the deed is. Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is delivered and accepted. Flashcard 78. 78. What is the purpose of a title search? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is run a chain of title. Flashcard 79. 79. What is a title? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a bundle of ownership rights. Flashcard 80. 80. Private restrictions are enforced by private citizens. Which of the following is the strongest control they have over a property owner? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is deed restrictions. Flashcard 81. 81. Which statement correctly applies to owner's title insurance? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is it protects the buyer from title defects. Flashcard 82. 82. Which deed contains no warrants or promises? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is quitclaim deed. Flashcard 83. 83. If an owner dies intestate with no known heirs, how can the state take the property? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is escheat. Flashcard 84. 84. How many acres does the following legal description contain? The S1/2 of the SW1/4 of the NW1/4 and the N1/2 of the NW1/4 of the SW1/4 of a section. Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 40. Flashcard 85. 85. The southeast corner of Section 31, Township 1 North, Range 3 West, is how many miles from Tallahassee? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 17. Flashcard 86. 86. The horizontal strip of land 6 miles wide immediately north of the Tallahassee baseline would be. Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is Township 1 North. Flashcard 87. 87. What type of listing can be held by more than one broker? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is open listing. Flashcard 88. 88. Which action can terminate a contract? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is performance. Flashcard 89. 89. Which item is an essential element of a sales contract? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is an offer and acceptance. Flashcard 90. 90. What does the statute of frauds require? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is to be enforceable. A contract transferring an interest in real estate must be in writing. Flashcard 91. 91. What is stated in the statute of limitations? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is the time frame in which a contract can be enforced. Flashcard 92. 92. The essential elements of a contract include all of the following, except to think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is notarized. Flashcard 93. 93. In states which operate under title theory, the borrower think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is transfers ownership to the mortgagee or third party until paid. Flashcard 94. 94. What is the amount of guarantee based upon for a VA guaranteed loan? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is loan amount. Flashcard 95. 95. Fill in the blanks. Conventional lenders usually want the buyer's housing ration not to exceed blank, and the total obligations ration not to exceed blank. Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 28%, 36%. Flashcard 96. 96. What is the name for the legal document that pledges a property as security for a loan? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is mortgage. Flashcard 97. 97. What does the FHA do with respect to mortgage lending? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is insurance loans. Flashcard 98. 98. What is it called when a buyer buys a property and takes over responsibility on an existing loan? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is assumption of the mortgage. Flashcard 99. 99. When calculating housing and total obligation ratios, which income value does the lender use? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is gross monthly income. Flashcard 100. 100. Which type of loan uses both real and personal property as security? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is package mortgage. Flashcard 101. 100. Which remedies are available when a seller breaches a contract? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is either a suit for specific performance or the buyer gets deposit returned, but not both. Flashcard 102. 102. What term refers to the right of a mortgagor to stop a foreclosure process by paying the entire balance, interest, and so on? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is right of redemption. Flashlight audit. Which type of mortgage is known as seller financing? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is purchase money mortgage. Flashlight audit 4. Where are the interest rate, payment, and other terms of a loan found? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is note. Flashlight audit 5. Which statement is correct in a lien theory state such as Florida? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is the mortgage serves as a lien against the property. Flashlight 106. Which of the following is a characteristic of an amortized or level payment mortgage? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is the early payments are mostly interest. Flashlight 107. Which term refers to the process of sand deposits building up over time, causing an increase in land? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is accretion. Flashlight audit 108. Which estate where tenancy is the most comprehensive? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is fee simple. Flashlight 109. Which term refers to the government's right to limit or control the actions of citizens in the form of such things as zoning codes and building codes? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is police power. Flashlight 110. Which process is used by the government to take private land for public use? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is condemnation. Flashlight 111. Which term refers to the interest that is charged when banks borrow from the Federal Reserve? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is discount rate. Flashlight 112. If a lender charges 8% interest plus 2 points, what is the approximate yield on the loan? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 8.25%. Flashlight audit. The primary purpose of the Federal Home Loan Bank system is to provide support for which of the following? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is savings associations. Flashlight audit 14. Which characteristic applies to the note documentary stamp tax? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $1.35 per $100. Flashlight audit 15. What would the Federal Reserve do when it wants to increase the supply of loanable funds? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is decrease the reserve requirement. Flashlight 116. When is intermediation in financial institutions most likely to occur? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is when supply of funds is increasing and the demand is decreasing. Flashlight 117. How would an escrow deposit typically appear on a closing statement? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is credit to buyer. Flashlight 118. What may the lender request the court to grant when there is a foreclosure and the auction sale does not provide enough proceeds to pay the entire mortgage debt? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is deficiency judgment. Flashcard 119. 119. What results in a decrease of land mass? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is erosion. Flashcard 120. 120. What is the description of the township located due east of T4N, R3W? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is T4N, R2W. Flashcard 121. 121. The highest and best use of a parcel of land is the use that creates which of the following? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is greatest value for the land. Flashcard 122. 122. The subject property has a garage. The comparable property has no garage. If a garage has a value of $48 and the comparable property sold for $49.90, what adjustment should be made? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is add a $40,500 adjustment to the comparable property. Flashcard 120. 120. All of the following are basic types of depreciation, except to think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is component depreciation. Flashcard 124. 124. The present value of a future cash flow is the basis for which appraisal technique. Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is direct capitalization. Flashcard 125. 125. How would a purchase money mortgage appear on a closing statement? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is credit the buyer and debit the seller. Flashcard 126. 126. What method can be used to depreciate residential real estate purchased after 1986? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 27.5 years straight line. Flashcard 127. 127. What is the name for the annual income that an investment property could make with no vacancies or collection losses? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is potential gross income. Flashcard 128. 128. What is a contract for deed or land contract? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a form of owner financing. Flashcard 129. 129. What is required for a person who represents him or herself as a business broker? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a real estate license. Flashcard 130. Which term refers to the tangible and intangible resources of a business? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is assets. Flashcard 131. 131. Which asset is the most difficult to set a dollar value on for a business? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is goodwill. Flashcard 132. 132. John has the opportunity to invest in a property with a 9% return. He can borrow the money at an interest rate of 7%. Which investment characteristic exists? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is positive leverage. Flashcard 180. 180. What are ad valorem taxes? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is real estate property taxes. Flashlight for when do property taxes in Florida become delinquent? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is April 1 of the following year. Flashlight on 35. On 35. Who can assess property for tax purposes? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is County Property Appraiser. Flashlight on 6. Which law requires farmland near an urban area to be valued the same as more distant farmland for tax purposes? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is Greenbelt Law. Flashlight on 37. On 87. The Johnsons have lived in their home for the last 4 years. Now they are selling and expect a profit of nearly $200. Which statement applies? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is the gain is exempt from tax. Flashlight on E. Failure to pay property taxes will lead to the sale of tax certificates. In order to force the sale of the property, how many years must the investor wait? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 2. Flashlight on 89. On 18. Which governmental power authorizes a city to make zoning laws? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is police power. Flashlight on report. A convenience store existed at a location prior zoning law changes that would have disallowed it. Under which type of exception can the store remain? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is non-conforming use. Flashlight on 41. What results from zoning laws? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is communities are divided into districts based on use. Flashlight on 42. Why 42? What is the membership composition of the Value Adjustment Board? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 2 county commissioners, 1 school board member, and 2 private citizens. Flashlight on Local planning agencies have the final authority for all of the following, except think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is zoning variances. Flashlight on 44. What must a person do in order to qualify for the homestead tax exemption? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is file for the exemption each year. Flashlight on 45. If an owner felt that a zoning rule was causing an economic hardship, not of his or her own making, he or she may seek relief by requesting think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a variance. Flashlight on 46. 46. All of the following are characteristics of real estate except think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is the market is homogeneous. Flashlight on 47. 7. What is the purpose of building codes? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is to establish minimum standards of building design and construction. Flashlight on What are the 2 most important financial summary statements of a business? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is balance sheet and income statement. Flashlight on 49. In which market would there be a shortage of housing? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is seller's market. Flash order. Which financial statement shows the status of a business as of specific date? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is balance sheet. Flash order 51. 151. A law service company sold for $1.25. The tangible assets amounted to the lawn equipment valued at $48,000. The intangible assets were the customer base and the company's good reputation. What is the value of the intangible assets? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $77,000. Flash order 52. 152. A property manager of an office building leases 2,500 square feet of space to a doctor's office, which is 12.5% of the total space. What is the total square footage of the building? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 20. Flash order 50. A homestead property has an assessed value of $2,849. If the county tax rate is 7 mils, the city is 8 mils, and the school board is 9 mils, how much does the homestead exemption save the homeowner? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $975. Flash order 54. James, a potential buyer, is told by the lender that he can have a loan at an interest rate of 6%. When he goes to the closing, he notices that the truth in lending statement says the APR is 6.5%. Using the rule of thumb calculation, how many points were most likely charged? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 4. Flash order 55. 55. Carol is borrowing money to purchase her first home. The lender has agreed to a 5% loan with 2 discount points. What is the approximate yield on the loan? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 5.25%. Flash order 56. 156. Jack has an income of $85,000 per year, and Patricia, his wife, has an income of $75,000. They have car payments of $540 per month each, credit card payments of $16, and student loan payments of $8 per month. The loan they are applying for would have a monthly payment of $13,400. What is the housing expense ratio? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 26%. Flash order 57. 157. What amount do the second monthly payment would be applied to a principal on a $18 loan with an annual interest rate of 6.5% for 30 years with payments of $7.72? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $63.60. Flash order 58. Sandy is purchasing home for $15 with a down payment of $48. If she finances the difference, what is the loan-to-value ratio? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 80%. Flash order 59. 159. Sarah made an escrow deposit of $500 on her sales contract. The sale price is $200, and she has arranged for an 5% loan. If her closing costs are $6,000, how much additional cash must she bring to the closing? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $27,858. Flash order 160. A property that listed got $400 and sold for 93% of the listing price with a 5% commission. It was sold by another office. The commission is to be split 50% to the listing office and 50% to the selling office. If the seller's associate is to receive 40% of the listing office share, how much will the listing broker receive? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $15,500. Flashcard 161. A developer purchased 2 adjacent lots of 200 front feet each for $35 each. He then divided them into 3 lots and sold them for $225 per front lot. What was the percentage of profit? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 29.0%. Flashcard 162. A real estate closing for a duplex is scheduled for September 7, with the day of closing charged to the buyer. Monthly rent is $8 per unit. Which closing statement entry is correct? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is credit the buyer $2,080.00. Flashcard 163. Closing date is June 8 with the day of closing belonging to the buyer. Annual real estate taxes are $2,780. Using the 365-day method, what prorated amount of taxes will be debited to the seller? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $0.75. Flashcard 164. In Amber, the seller paid $1.75 for the annual property taxes. The closing date is December 14, and the day of closing belongs to the seller. Using the 365-day method, what prorated amount of taxes will be debited to the buyer? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $64.04. Flashcard 165. A 10-year-old home is being appraised. The square footage of gross living area is 3. There is also a 420 square foot garage. If the construction cost is $70 per square foot for living area and $35 for a garage, what is the reproduction cost of the structure? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $150. Flashcard 166. Calculate the total state taxes due in the following transaction. Sales price is $249. The buyer will assume the seller's first mortgage of $190. The seller has agreed to take back a new purchase money second mortgage for $25,000. Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $249.00. Flashcard 167. Mr. Johnson owns an apartment building that produces an effective gross income of $85,000 per year. What would be the value, given operating expenses of $30,000 and an overall capitalization rate of 11%? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $5. Flashcard 168. An investment property has a potential gross income of $3 and a vacancy rate of 5% and operating expenses including $30 of reserves for replacement totaling $40. What is the net operating income? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $5. Flashcard 169. What is the monthly gross rent multiplier for a house that sold for $265 and was rented for $2 per month? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 134.05. Flashcard 170. 170. What is the gross income multiplier for an investment property that has a gross income of $5 and a net income of $330? If the value is $4,025,025, think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is 7.5. Flashcard 171. 171. If a lot measures 125 feet by 225 feet, the street in front is scheduled to be paved at a cost of $100 per front foot, how much would an homeowner's special assessment be if the county is paying 30%? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $4.75. Flashcard 172. 172. An 8-year-old building looks only 3 years old because it has been well maintained. The reproduction cost of the building is $400,500, and the economic life is 45 years. The land is valued at $80,000. What is the building's approximate depreciation? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $26,870. Flashcard 170. 170. An investor purchased an office building for $16.55 with acquisition cost of $42. If the building represents 80% of the cost, what is the annual IRS depreciable allowance? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $480.59. Flashcard 174. 174. A comparable property recently sold for $429. The comparable property is built of superior materials valued at $25,000 but has less square footage than the subject property valued at $35,000. What is the adjusted sale price of the comparable property? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $180. Flashcard 175. 175. A homeowner purchased a primary residence for $395 including $8 closing costs and $68 for the lot. After the closing, hurricane shutters were installed at the cost of $12,600. What is the adjusted basis for tax purposes? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is $15. Flashcard 176. 176. Who may be compensated directly by an owner for performing any of the 8 services of real estate? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is both broker and sales associate, if employed by an owner-developer. Flashcard 177. 177. A. B. C bought 640 acres of land with equal and undivided interest. A and B were brokers, and C was not. And B were frequent business partners but decided to let C handle the resale of the tract. C had very little experience but was able to find a buyer willing to pay a good price. Because of this, A and B decided to give C 40% of the profits and divide equally the balance of the profit. Which applies. Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is FS. 475 has been violated. Flashcard 178. 178. Jerry was notified that he passed the state sales associate license exam. For which type of employer does his license allow him to perform real estate services? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a broker, an owner-developer, or a real estate brokerage corporation. Flashcard 179. 179. Owner and friend B meet on the street. A says, I would like to sell my house. He takes the information and says, I'll find you a buyer. I've done it several times for our friends. B finds a buyer for A's house, and the transaction is closed. Based on the above facts, which of the following applies? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is neither have violated FS. 475. Flashlight audit. 190. The requirements for obtaining a Florida real estate license include all of the following, except think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is being a Florida resident. Flashlight 181. 181. Mary does not have a real estate license and works for a syndicate, which buys, sells, manages, and leases its own property. Mary was hired to lease and sell AA's property. She is compensated by a salary. Which statement is correct? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is there is no violation of FS. 475. Flashlight audit B2. 182. Which information is included in the public records? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a sales associate's application. Flashlight audit. An owner of a service station who holds an inactive sales associate's license has been appointed by the court to appraise another service station. Which statement is most correct? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is he or she may be compensated directly for this service. Flashlight audit before. 184. What must a sales associate do to be eligible to take the broker examination? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is be employed by one or more actively licensed brokers for at least 24 months within the preceding 5 years. Flashlight audit D5. 135. Which action would cause an applicant's request for licensure be denied without prejudice? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is omitting one or more answers to questions on the application. Flashlight on 186. 186. Jasper Judd is a salaried resident manager of the Golden Age condominium complex. Adolph Ajax, an owner of one of the units in the condominium, has asked Jasper to lease his unit while he is away on an extended trip to Bulgaria. Jasper may think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is lease out the unit for Adolph for not more than 1 year as long as he is not compensated in addition to his salary. Flashlight I-7. 187. George Portfolio is a stockbroker who does not hold a real estate license. He believes the stock of the Gasaway Corporation has high potential. Upon contacting the president of Gasaway to assist the corporation in listing its stock for sale, he learns that the success of the company hinges on the negotiation of an oil lease. George offers his assistance, and the company engages him to negotiate the lease with Slick Slacker, the owner. Upon closing the lease, the company employs George as its stockbroker. George subsequently sells the corporation's stock. The corporation pays George a commission on the stock sale and gives him 5 shares for handling the oil lease. George, think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is has violated FS. 475. Flashlight on into 188. Mr. White referred his sister to a real estate broker, and she purchased $1 to her tint home. What may the broker do to show his thanks? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is send a thank you note to Mr. White. Flashlight 189. 189. Which is the best license status for practicing real estate? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is valid and current. Flashcard 190. 190. A resident of Canada that has been denied a license in the province of Ontario subsequently moves to Florida and applies for a real estate sales associate's license, which would most likely apply. Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is the person will be granted a hearing, and the application will be pending based on the result of the hearing. Flashcard 191. 191. Which of the following best describes the purpose of the real estate license law? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is it puts forth the fundamental principles of law that every licensee must adhere to in order to protect the public. Flashcard 192. 192. XYZ Development Corp. was developing a PUD planned unit development in Carroll City. Sales associate Green, employed by XYZ Corp., was employed to sell vacant home sites. XYZ Corp. had a subsidiary company, the Sunshine Corp., in another city 200 miles away, developing another PUD. If sales associate Green is transferred to the Sunshine Corp., which statement is correct? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is he could apply for a group license and notify the FREC. Flashcard 190. 190. Robert, as sales associate, has been working with an investor that is looking for single-family properties for income. In order to get preferential treatment, the investor offers $1 in finder's fee directly to Robert for each suitable property he finds. This arrangement would be think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is a violation of FS 475, because it is not paid to his broker. Flashcard 194. 194. What should a sales associate do if he or she considers a rule to be invalid? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is notify FREC. Flashcard 195. 195. An applicant has passed the state examination for becoming a sales associate. An hour later, Aaron has the opportunity to list his neighbor's house. Aaron may think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is list the house as long as he has an employing broker and both Aaron and employing broker are properly registered on the records of the DBPR. Flashcard 196. 196. Before the rules and regulations enacted by the FREC become effective, with which entity must they be filed? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is Secretary of State. Flashcard 197. 197. Which entity signs the certificates of the FREC meetings that reflect the actions of the Commission? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is FREC chairperson or vice chairperson. Flashcard 198. 198. Which items would be optional on a branch office sign? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is branch office name. Flashcard 199. 199. Jeff is the owner of a building that is leased to Craig. If Jeff sells the building, what is the status of the lease? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is it is binding on the new owner. Flashcard 200. 200. A sales associate went on vacation. While gone, the broker moved the office around the block. When the Sal's associate returned, there was an urgent message that two serious prospects had called. Also, a sale closed in his absence and the broker owes him a commission. What should the Sal's associate do first? Think of the answer before the reveal. The answer is, call the two prospects immediately.